In this example, we're going to use the commutative and associative properties to perform operations in an order we find most simple. So here we have 13 plus 29 in parentheses plus 7. Okay? And we can add them in this order, start with 13 and 29 and then add 7. But I see a way that will be easier, so I'm going to think of it differently. So here's kind of the long way justifying it with the commutative and associative properties. So the commutative property says that I can reverse these two. So I could put the 7 in front and put the 13 plus 29 second. So this is commutative property. And the associative property says that I could change this grouping and group the first two together. So 7 plus 13 plus 29. Now I wanted to do this because when I saw the 13 and 7, they add up to 20. And whenever you can get a 0 in the ones place, it's going to make your computations easier. Here I could do this in my head. I'd have to carry. This would be 42 and this would be 7, which is 49. But if I add the 7 and 13, that's 20. And then adding 29 is easy. 20 and 29, we get 49. This was the associative property here. Okay. Now you don't need to write all these steps as you do this. I was just doing this to indicate how we were using the commutative and associative properties. So basically, if it's all addition or all multiplication, you can pretty much ignore the parentheses. Now remember, this is all addition. There's nothing multiplied on the outside. And you can pick and choose which ones you want to add first. So I would look at this again. I would say 13 and 7, without rewriting the whole thing, is 20. And then add the 29 to get 49. Let's look at the next one with multiplication. So we have 5 times 6 times 8 in parentheses. And we're supposed to add this or multiply the 6 times 8 first. Now I'd really like to multiply the 5 with something first. And the reason is when you multiply numbers by 5, it ends in a 5 or a 0. And since these are even, I know it's going to end in a 0. So I am going to use the associative property to say I'm going to multiply 5 times 6 first. Well, 5 times 6 is 30. And now I have 30 times 8. Well, when the second digit is 0, I know that this is just 3 rods times 8 units. Well, that's going to be 240, or 24 rods, or 240 in total. So I like multiplying when this is a 0. You just multiply these digits. 3 times 8 is 24, and keep the 0. Okay? Now, again, you don't have to rewrite everything. I would just look at this and say 5 times 6. Even though it's in parentheses, it's like I'm ignoring the parentheses, and I'm only allowed to because of the associative property. And I'd write 30 times 8 is 240. Okay? So you can do it the other way. 6 times 8 is 48. 5 times 48. But I think you'll agree 5 times 48 is a bit harder than 240. If you had to do this by hand, you'd probably write this out in this way. 8 times 5 is 40, 0 carry the 4, 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 240. Whereas I could just do this one in my head by multiplying 3 and 8. So that's some ways that the associative property is useful for both addition and multiplication.